I'd say that people like us, like everyone has their moment where they just realize, okay, fuck, like school is not for me. And at the age of 14, I'm making a couple £1,000s, and then I'm going to school and I'm being taught all this stuff, and I'm like, why? There's so much opportunity out there. So everyone thinks they know how to do marketing and branding. No one really does.
Got a plan with their nose. I sleep on the beach off the avenue.
All right, guys, we're here with Zach Des, fellow high school dropout and marketer. We linked up pretty soon. He sent me a DM on Instagram, and we thought we'd set up a little like off-the-cuff video because, as I said, number one, both high school dropouts. Number two, both in the creating content marketing field, and yeah, we're just gonna sit the camera down, have a little discussion. This is actually our first time meeting, and see what comes of it. So basically, I mean, like, I'm really curious as to why did you decide to drop out of high school, and what made you feel as though you were in a position of power to do that? Like, did you? Because one thing I always say is that you should have a really firm grip on the next branch before you let go of the one you're holding on to right now. So what in your mind made you feel as though you had a strong enough grip?
I think one of the things which I had to think about was whether or not I was mentally in a position to do it, because it's almost as if you're jumping off a cliff into the unknown. And I think predominantly the thing which I focused on the most was how was I going to make sure that this did work out. So I sat down and I had a look at the pros and cons as to staying in sixth form, as we call it here, or ditching the whole thing and then just kind of going my own way. And being at sixth form, one of the hardest things which I discovered was that you are literally ticking boxes and just meeting targets that are set for like the 2 years that you're there. Although you're achieving things, are you actually achieving things which are going to benefit you later on in life? Yes, you'll have like a degree or something shiny to show for it, but for me personally, the one thing which I wasn't getting out of it was the opportunity to experience things and have fun that I truly felt was me enjoying myself. So when I dropped out, I was ultimately thinking to myself, how am I going to make sure that I'm doing something that I can have fun, enjoy myself, and be creative, because I am a creative person. So that was what I had to make sure I was doing, finding something which was creative enough for me to say, yeah, let me do this.
So you talk about creativity. Would you say that creativity, the education system killed your creativity and really forced you to like push that down as you kept trying to bring it up in class and go out into your own endeavors? Did you feel as though like school really restricted you and almost numb that part of your brain?
Absolutely. I think one of the things which I struggled with when I was at school was that you are consistently dealing with meeting the targets, making sure that you're doing what is set of you, but you can't ever do more than what is required. There's always a brief which you get given. You never kind of say, oh yeah, you can do a project entirely on whatever you want, and like that's that. There's always like, okay, you can do this project, but it's about people, or it's about this, or it's about that. And I always felt like, okay, even though you get given like a loose target, the thing which I struggled with the most was trying to make sure that I was pleasing those teachers and making sure that they were happy and everything like that. And for me, it's like very different to just picking up your camera one day, going out into the world, and then just snapping pictures, not really knowing like what you're really going to accomplish that day, and then going back and editing and finding something which you're like, yeah, this is cool. So I think that the school system, for some people, it can really help nurture their creativity, but for me, it killed it completely, because I had to make sure that I was inside of that cardboard box.
I'd say that people like us, like everyone has their moment where they just realize, okay, fuck, like school is not for me. For me, it was when I was 14 and back like early on in like the Instagram influencer game, like when influencers started becoming a big thing, when Instagram influencer promotions and all these people, people started earning a K, 2K just to promote a product. I mean, this shit was like unheard of. Back then, I would flip Instagram accounts, because I'm sure you know this. Everyone thinks they know how to do marketing and branding. No one really does. So I'd flip Instagram accounts. And at the age of 14, I'm making a couple £1,000s, and then I'm going to school and I'm being taught all this stuff, and I'm like, why? There's so much opportunity out there. So my question to you is, like, when was that moment for you? Like, when did it click that I have so much potential outside of this?
I think when I kind of began to realize the potential was, I think I heard something on the news maybe one day, and I sat there and I thought, okay, all of these brands are like paying begging for my attention. They want my attention. These people want my attention. They're, bombarding me with adverts when I watch YouTube videos, for example, or, when I'm looking at a post on Facebook or Twitter. Even when you open up, a newspaper, or you go and watch a bit of TV, there's adverts everywhere that you look. And I was really intrigued to kind of find out how it was that people were creating this content and then targeting it at me directly. Like, how did they know what my interests were? How did they know, like, that was directly what I was interested in buying? So I think curiosity was what led me to really understand this was what I wanted to do.
So you're saying, one of your biggest passions is understanding people, and you're saying, I tell my audience all the time that network is everything, and I keep saying, like, you don't have to be world class at everything, or you don't even have to be world class at one thing. You just have to, the only thing you have to be amazing at, and no one can beat you on, is your knowledge of people and understanding people. Because at the end of the day, there's, like, money doesn't appear out of anywhere. Money is given to you, or there's a transfer of money between people. And if you can understand that and you can really drill in, then you're never gonna grow broke. You're always constantly gonna have this money coming in. So I talk about networking a lot on my channel. What are your main tips for networking?
I think my main tips for networking is that you can never actually do too much networking. And, it's not something that you can do an overkill. Going to events is a big thing for me, and making sure that I'm not closing myself off to the world. So I know a lot of people who are quite big, but you send them a message, or, they open themselves up like, I'm open to creating with other people. Hit me a message, you hit them with a message, and they never read it, and you kind of think to yourself, okay. But then I think that it's important for you as someone who wants to kind of network with other people, is you have to be someone who is good with people and able to, understand where they're coming from, what they're doing, and being able to give them something in return so that they can take something away from that experience that they've had with you. So when I'm networking, the number one thing I'm thinking of is how can I create not just a lasting relationship in business, but a lasting friendship. So it's important to make sure that they're not just feeling like, okay, I can only contact him maybe 9 to 5 or whatever, and it can only be strictly about this. Like, you can contact me any time of the day about anything, and I will do my best to help you out with that. Like, that for me is very important, to make sure that people understand that I am a person and I am human, and I'm not just like, waiting for you to come with me with a proposition, and that's that.
So I always say this about content, and I always say this about the same thing applies to people. You're always one piece of content away from that big pop, and I think a lot of people discount, like, the small little micro content. If they're not feeling good that day, they won't film that video. But you know what? Maybe that video pops, and maybe that video is the video that leads to so many opportunities, but you don't give it enough credit. And I think that's the same thing that applies to people. I feel as though there's a lot of people in this taker mentality who are sort of just going out and trying to find, like, who will give me the best return on investment in terms of my time, and they discount the small person because they think there's no, like, return on investment on them. And I've already seen from you the way you discuss about that open source friendship, and one of my biggest mottos is you get what you give.
Yeah.
So do you have anything to elaborate on that, and sort of what's your view on that?
I think the saying that you get what you give is very important, because some people almost feel like when they speak to you that they are directly, almost instantly, like, that they deserve something from you, or that, I'm entitled to get this from you just because I've given you my time. Although time is money and it is an investment, you have to make sure that when you have had a friendship with someone, or you have given a lot to them, that you are going to get something back. You can't just turn around to someone and say, I feel like I've given you this, therefore, like, where's my cut? Like, I helped you with that project that one time, where's my check from it? It is important that you understand, like, everyone is kind of on the ladder working their way up together. So to isolate yourself is, it's a very stupid concept. Like, okay, I really want to just be the only one working on this project, so I'm just going to shy away in the corner, and everyone else is just going to do their thing. And then all of a sudden it pops, and I'm just going to come out and be like, I was part of that project back in the day. Yeah, do you remember it? Like, I had that actually happen to me a couple of days ago. I'm working on a project at the moment, and someone turned around to me and was like, oh, they blocked me on Instagram actually, and that's how I knew. So they unblocked me and unfollowed me, and I turned around and I sent them a message, and I was like, oh, it's great to see you obviously taking such an interest in everything I'm doing. I haven't heard from you in a couple of years. How are you doing? And I just kind of looked at it and I thought, like, isn't this just such a bizarre scenario? Like, that person who had obviously, I don't know if they felt a bit on ice or something. They just kind of decided, right, we'll push him to the side. And then it was like, okay, yeah, maybe this is a good time for us to contact him. Maybe he's the one. So, in that aspect, what they are giving me is a load of shit. So what they're going to get back is nothing. Whereas if you invest time, if you're going to invest ideas and creativity in someone, you're going to get back 1,000 times more, because that person is going to repay you not just with rewards such as cash or whatever, but they're going to repay you with knowledge, and knowledge is power, as I'm sure you know.
All right, so I think one market that's really, really starting to emerge right now, and it's pretty new, is just content creation in general. The need for, the need that brands and influencers have to get really high quality content out there, especially because there's so much on the market right now. Just to stand out, you need to understand the psychology of what makes ideas stick, or create content that is just beautifully curated. And that's something that, you focus on quite a lot. So was that also, like, does that give you really a lot of reassurance? Because if you're in another industry that's sort of dying, it's coming to an end, and in the field of content creation, that's something that's flourishing. So where do you see that going?
I think content creation on a whole is something which is absolutely massive as right now, because it's so simple for you to create something. I mean, literally, you don't even need an agency anymore to do anything for you. You can create a picture on the internet, and then you can literally promote it with your own funds and have it become an advert. You can promote your own content that way if you're willing to put enough money into it and get the views. You may not target the audience specifically, but you get the views. And I think in terms of content creation on a whole, it is something which has boomed out of nowhere almost. Because before it was all about okay, let's spend a shit ton of money on the most glossy videos that we can and have people really fall in love with them. Let's target this individual, let's have the most gorgeous sunset and people riding off into the distance for a Coke ad or something like that. And now it's no, okay, let's just get some average Joe sitting at home with a box of Coke and then just take a picture, and that's all you need now. And content creation is just about trying to create something that it's not way up here, but it resonates with the individual, the everyday Joe almost. You want to just turn on your phone, go through something and look at it and think, wow, that's a nice shot, as opposed to thinking, wow, I'd love to be over there, even though it's going to cost me God knows how many pounds to fly there, do that and do that. The fact that you can literally just create anything you want online and then publish it is impressive. And with regards to where content creation is going, I can only see it getting bigger. More brands are catching on to it. Individuals as well are using that as a way to make a stable income as well. And people are even beginning to specialize in it. So with regards to photography, you are creating content and you're almost promoting yourself as well as your work, whether you focus on portraits or landscapes or business photography, weddings, whatever. You are creating content that people are then turning around to and going wow, I want something like that in my life. So putting your best foot forward and using it as a chance to make a good first impression with someone that you may later on down the line be working with, that may be supporting your income. I think that content creation is definitely just going to boom.
So you talk about the evolution in actual content creation, and I find it very interesting how even just a couple years ago, everyone wants everything to be super glamorous, right? And then nowadays it's almost, the more honest you can be, the more sincere you can be. It seems like that sort of content appeals. Even, if you look at some of the best vloggers, Casey Neistat, it's not these vlogs where it's a perfect life. It's almost like the nitty gritty which appeals to people. And I talk about, the return on investment when you're just honest and you're so raw. And I feel as though I built such a deep connection with a lot of my following, and I built so much rapport with a lot of my following because I'm so honest and I'm real. In Europe, because you're a content creator, right? Have you seen that change where, even just a couple years ago, it would be who can do After Effects the best, who can do, who can you have the most expensive camera? Have you, put more, and this is something I'm doing myself, which is why I ask, do you put more thought into the narrative and the way it makes people feel nowadays?
I think most definitely it's all about how you make people feel and how you can also evoke emotion from them. So when you put out, you know, a picture, it's about the emotion behind it. How does it make someone feel? The same with a painting, the same with a TV show. Like, you want to really get under people's skin and make them think like, wow, like I resonate with that character, or I resonate with that emotion, or that makes me feel sad, that makes me feel happy. So I also feel like what is very important when you look at the way that content has gone and the way that things are being published is that it used to be a case that like every celebrity would go in a studio with a white background and that would be a photo shoot. Whereas now you're getting people who are sitting, having a coffee, walking down the street with a bag over their shoulder, like just doing things very casually. And that's almost like making people think like, wow, that's something which I do every day. And, you know, I can look that good doing it, wearing those brands or doing that. And when you are creating those specific pieces of content, I think that people really can begin to just think like, oh, you know, this is an honest piece of advertising that isn't trying to like lead me into believe anything else. And I think that, you know, I really am a big fan of creating things like that people are going to enjoy. But I always want them to take something away from the work that I'm doing. So like, you know, if they see something and it's a blue sky and it's a beautiful day, it's like, okay, let's make the most of this, let's go out and let's enjoy it, as opposed to, oh, you know, just look at this beautiful day, like that's it.
Okay, so to end off here, I'm gonna finish off with one last question. There's so many of you out there, and look, I know my audience, I know the people who view my videos very, very well, because I study you guys closely, and I know all of you guys are striving, but I know a lot of you guys are also really young, and you're sort of trying to balance the two. So look, we're both 17-year-old high school dropouts. I can even just tell, you know, from your energy that you're someone who's very happy with himself, happy with the way his life has gone. So my question to you, and what I'd like you to leave my audience with, is, what are your 3 top tips to, number one, make the most of your youth, but then also make sure that you don't look back and you're like, where was my childhood?
I think what is very important is making sure that you, as well as maybe having those older friends, that you have those younger friends that are gonna, you know, allow you to go out and do those things that you could do to have a youth. But, you know, when times get to it, like, okay, we'll switch it up. 1 minute you're going to be out with those friends, and the next minute, you know, you're able to jump in and have fun with your older friends and do things which are a bit more kind of like refined. I think it's very important to just live for the moment and not really think about what's coming next as well, because, you know, you are only young once, and the thing which you're gonna have to live with is, okay, I didn't do that. That feeling of regret is gonna stay with you forever. Oh, I didn't do that. Oh, I wish I did that. I wish I took that opportunity. Like, as opposed to dealing with that, just jump for it, take it. If it goes well, absolutely fantastically, like, hats off to you. But if it doesn't, then don't be too bogged down about it, because you can say, okay, I did it, and that's that. I think that it's very important that you literally just like live every day and make sure that when it comes to the end of the day, that you can turn around and say like, oh, okay, you know, I did something today which has changed my life, or I've done something today which is memorable. I've made that day have a purpose, as opposed to, you know, I just lived for the day.
Yeah. Okay. Well, guys, here it is. 2 high school dropouts giving you pretty much a short little talk on dropping out, monetizing your passion, marketing, content creation. I hope you guys have enjoyed this. This is something that I've never done before, but I'm meeting so many cool, new, inspiring people right now that, you know, we need to share the story. We need to share their stories. So, you know, big thank you to Zach. Thanks for coming along. Yeah, if you enjoyed the video and you want to see more videos like this, please leave a like. It really does mean the world to me. We'll catch you guys in the next one.